Part 2 of session 57. We have more pyramids today. Let's get to it. In the last video, we were discussing the pyramid healing along with the normal healing that Ra described as the use of the crystal and so on. So the conversation still goes now into pyramids because Don was very interested in all that information. I'm not sure if he or they wanted to build pyramids for meditation and so on, because you can build these pyramids so you can go into meditation. In fact, there's a lot of information on the internet where you can build your own pyramid or buy them, and it helps. But as we will explore here, not only are the pyramids not necessary, but you can also you can be your own portable pyramid if you want. So yes, I said that right. You can be your own portable pyramid, and that's where we want to get to. So the rest of this session is going to be pyramids until the last question, which is huge. And I either cover as much as possible, or I get to the end and leave that question for another video, because I think we cannot do enough honor in this video, and it requires its own separate video, even if it's 20 minutes, half hour. So we'll just cover whatever we can, and we'll see where we can go. So like I said, the conversation was going to pyramids at this point because Don was asking about healing, and then healing turned into the question of how does this relate to the pyramids and the healing done in the pyramids, and so Ra gave that answer in question 12. But here in question 13, Don is going to ask, is there currently any use for the pyramid shape at all that is beneficial? And Ra says, this is in the affirmative, if carefully used. The pyramid may be used for the improvement of the meditative state as long as the shape is such that the entity is in Queen's Chamber position, or entities are in balanced configuration about this central point. The small pyramid shape placed beneath a portion of the body complex may energize this body complex. This should be done for brief periods only, not to exceed 30 of your minutes. The use of the pyramid to balance planetary energies still functions to a slight extent, but due to Earth changes, the pyramids are no longer aligned properly for this work. So this brings a couple of points that I want to talk about pyramids. And the first one is that there is a sort of benefit that we can still derive from pyramids, as I was saying at the beginning. And that is that it aids in meditation. And as we will see here, you're supposed to build a pyramid that has a specific shape, an angle, and material, so it'll aid you in meditation. Meditation in this case is equal to the seeking of the creator, or the desire to seek the creator. And we'll explore that here. But these are the benefits, like Ra says, that can improve the meditative state as long as the shape is such that the entity is in Queen's Chamber position. And from my very limited understanding, I think this has to do with the funneling of energy that the shape of the pyramid does. And so you need to have certain parameters, and we will talk about some of those. I apologize in advance because this is where I lack a lot of knowledge, and that would be ratios and angles and all of that stuff to build pyramids and so on. But greater people than me have done this work, and I'm sure you can find it on the internet if you're interested in physical pyramids. Now, the other point that to me is interesting here is the use of a small pyramid shape that can be placed under yourself or your body, and this will energize the body complex, but it shouldn't be done for more than 30 minutes. I have done it with this pyramid, and admittedly, I don't know if the shapes are proper, because it's something that Ra mentions. But this is a funnel of energy, and I think it's good ratios. I don't know, intuitively, but like I said, that's where I lack a lot of knowledge. So that can be used. Some people use them, put them under a pillow or under the bed, and you just lay there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum, according to Ra. And they finish up saying here, the use of the pyramid to balance planetary energies. That's another thing. Remember that the pyramids were built for different purposes. At least 5 of them were built for the balancing of the energies of the planet. And that's what Ra is mentioning here, that the use of the pyramid to balance planetary energies still functions to a slight extent, but because of Earth changes, they no longer are aligned properly for this work. But they do offer some sort of assistance. My ignorant opinion on this is that because of the shape of the pyramid, they do produce a sort of resonance. I mean, just the fact that the shape exists creates a sort of harmony in the planet somehow. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that these pyramids were built for balancing planetary energies. I believe it was due to the Atlantis catastrophe, or the cataclysm that followed Atlantis development. So in any case, it doesn't work as much, as well as the pyramids don't work for healing and initiation because of the same reasons, I would suspect. So important notes to make. Question 14 is next, and Don says, what is the aid or the mechanism of the aid received for a meditation for an entity who would be positioned in the so-called Queen's Chamber position? Ra says, consider the polarity of mind, body, spirit complexes. The inner light is that which is your heart of being. Its strength equals your strength of will to seek the light. The position or balanced position of a group intensifies the amount of this will, the amount of awareness of the inner light necessary to attract the in-streaming light upward, spiraling from the south magnetic pole of being. Thus, this is the place for the initiate. For many extraneous items or distortions will leave the entity as it intensifies its seeking, so that it may become one with the centralized and purified incoming light. So here is the collapse of sort of polarity. I would call it this way, and I'll explain as I go. But this illustrates so many things, and I could just get lost talking about going on tangents, and tangents for sure, because they are completely related to the surface of what we're talking about, but relevant to everything that we get from this answer. And so what is the purpose of meditation? Which I think is implied here for sure, as Don is asking that what is the aid or the mechanism of aid that you receive from the Queen's Chamber position for meditation. And so Ra describes this, I mean, just let's go phrase by phrase, because I think it's beautiful. Let's go. When they say, consider the polarity of mind, body, spirit complexes. This polarity could be anything. It could be service to others, service to self, up and down, male and female, whatever. You name it. But the polarity that they're talking about here is the inner light and the prana, right? So that's the whole answer. The whole answer is talking about these two lights, the polarity, the division, the apparent division of internal or inner world and outer world, the self and other self, the permanence and impermanence of reality. That's all there is here. You can see how I can go on a very long tangent talking about all of this, but again, that's the nature of studying the law of one. You're juggling with these concepts, and as you read it, you don't have to know all of this stuff the first time you read it. If this is your first time reading this part with me, or if it's the 10th time, it doesn't matter. even if it's anybody, Jim McCarthy could be reading this, and me and him could have a discussion about this, and we can go into details of all of these concepts. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that we get something out of it. And here I'm going to try to expand as much as possible, to break down as much as possible all of this, because this is the purpose. This is the one purpose of the creation, is to unify these polarities. We can talk about Buddhism here, the collapse of the apparent self with the self, the other self with the self, the external world and the inner world. I mean, this is just amazing. So, in any case, let's get to it. The inner light is that which we're talking about now, the polarity of the self. The inner light is that which is your heart of being. Your heart of being is consciousness. You are consciousness. You are the observer. You are that permanence, that immutable part of the one creator. So that is the inner light. Its strength, the strength of the inner light, equals your strength of will to seek the light. The free will of the entity to get lost in the separate self, to suffer in life, and to go back to the self. Well, the strength of the inner light is equal to the amount of strength of you to seek that light. How much you want to know that permanent part of yourself. And this is crucial. This is the focusing of the will, the focalizing of your will to watch Netflix. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with watching Netflix, but just eat, I don't know, go for a ride, or seek the one creator. They're not different things. You can do all of these things seeking the one creator. You see the difference? So it's your will to put your energy and enjoy reality for whatever it is as the creator. And this is how you strengthen your will for seeking the one creator. So there's no particular activity that you have to do. You need to meditate 20 hours a day. No. It's all about bringing, if you hear, bringing, I don't know how it's said in English, but it's the manifesting the heaven on earth, right? I forgot how to say it in English, but that's what you want to do, right? And so they keep saying the position or balanced position of a group intensifies the amount of this will. So the position, I suppose, is, it could be consciousness. See, this is confusing to me because they say the position or balanced position of a group intensifies the amount of this will, the amount of awareness of the inner light necessary to attract the instreaming light upward. Now we're talking about prana, spiraling from the south magnetic pole of being. That would be the impermanent part of reality, our changing self, everything else, reality, other people, and so on. That is prana. Anything, experience is prana. And so the position or balanced position of a group intensifies the amount of this will. Now, I don't think, especially because they say group, right? And this position to me means the placement of your seeking. And if you have a group that is seeking all of this, then it intensifies this. This is why group meditation or group channeling is much more efficiently, because this will, I mean, we're not separate beings. We're all one, and even if we're separated by distance, and we meditate at the same time with the same intention, with the same seeking, peace for Ukraine and Russia, harmony for our brothers in sorrow and suffering, whatever it is, as long as we have a pure intention, pure concentrated intention, then this will intensify the will for the seeking. And that is, to me, what they're talking about. But the question was about the Queen's chamber position, which again, the Queen's chamber position is to intensify this will by the forces of prana, or the energy that is being funneled into the pyramid. So, is it the same position? Yes, because it is being concentrated rather. It's being concentrated in the pyramid of Giza. And so, the amount of awareness of the inner light necessary to attract the instrument light upward, that is what it intensifies. It intensifies the amount of awareness of the inner light necessary to attract instrument light upward. And you can appreciate more everything, if I can put it in these words. You can appreciate things more as you intensify this seeking, because you are, I don't like the word forcing, but you're putting yourself in a position where you want to see the Creator in everything. You want to see the oneness of you and everything else. That is oneness. It's not oneness being the universe alone is oneness. I am the universe. And so this permeates there. And so Ra says, this is the place of the initiate, which is the Queen's Chamber's position. It's the position of the initiate. Initiation happens there. For many extraneous items or distortions will leave the entity as it intensifies its seeking. So many distortions, convictions, conceptions, concepts, ideas, all of these are extraneous items or distortions that will leave the entity. I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying we tend to foster or cultivate, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but just part of the process. Perhaps undesirably is a right word. We tend to cultivate, or maintain rather, these concepts about ourselves or reality. These ideas of how things should be. Ideals are to the detriment of society, always. That's my opinion, and I think it's a very justified opinion, that our ideals are the ones that are causing trouble, because ideals always have to be put into boxes, and those boxes, especially ideals, are defended. They're not like preferences. I have a preference for green, say. Oh, that's a preference. Nobody cares, for that much, that they're going to be offended by it. But ideals are easily offended. And so ideals should fall out because you are divided. And for this, you want to have the purest form of awareness, which is, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. All I know is that I see myself everywhere. And for that, of course, you need a lot of introspection. But that is the nature of it. And so they say these will leave the entity as it intensifies its seeking. See, all of these fall out. And this is directly proportional to the amount of intensification of seeking. So that it may come, that's beautiful. So that it may become one with the centralized and purified incoming light. The incoming light is neutral. Again, you see, there's so much poetry here. Let's go back to the beginning of the question, or the beginning of the answer from Ra, saying that there is consider the polarity of the individual mind, body, spirit complex. The inner light and the upward spiraling light. The inner light is permanent, is consciousness. The upward spiraling light is experience, is everything that you see, is your vision, is your thoughts, is people, is situations, or anything. And so that upward spiraling light, which is all of it trying to seek, or not trying, they are evolving. Matter is evolving at a very slow pace, but matter is becoming organic. And that organic is going to become life as we know it, sentient beings and so on. And it'll become third density, whatever it is, in this planet, another planet, doesn't matter. It's all about consciousness evolving. And so all of this is yourself evolving, and you are living within yourself. And so you unify this in perception. That's how you unify it. And so the purpose of all of this, intensifying this seeking to see yourself as the outer world, is that it may become one with this centralized and purified incoming light. That is the incoming light, the prana, the movement, Shakti, moving, dancing. And so it's interesting how talking about pyramids can leave us or lead us to this, as opposed to the usual talk that we find on media in general, internet channels, programs, whatever, that they just want to talk about the mysterious part of the pyramids, who built them and all of this stuff. I am much more interested in this non-transient information, as Ra would say, that is the understanding of the self. So forgive me if I can get anything sensationalist out of this, but I'm sure the majority of you are interested in the same type of information as I am, so sure you enjoy this. But let's move on. And we go to question 15, where Don says, then, if a pyramid shape is used, it would seem to me that it would be necessary to make it large enough so that the queen's chamber position would be far enough from the king's chamber position, so that you could use that energy position and not be harmed by the energy position of the king's chamber position, or any position farther from the queen's chamber. Is this correct? How many times did Don say position here? Probably like 5 or 6 times. Anyhow, I'll explain this if it was confusing. Ra says, in this application, a pyramid shape may be smaller if the apex angle is less, thus not allowing the formation of the king's chamber position. Also efficacious for this application are the following shapes: the silo, the cone, the dome, and the teepee. Okay, so Don just wanted to create a pyramid that didn't form the king's chamber position, and that has to do with the apex angle as opposed to the size, and I guess this has to do with the dynamics of energy funneling, intelligent energy, concentrated and focused, with the shape. And if the shape is such, I lack the knowledge on angles, ratios, all of that stuff. I really do. But you see, this is one of the things that some people may be able to explore a lot more, and I can't. But to me, that's unimportant, because the best we can get out of this question is that certain shapes may aid you in meditation, and that'll just aid in meditation. This is something that you need, but meditating in traffic, or up in the mountains, or in an isolated chamber, isolation of your senses and sensory deprivation, all of those may be helpful. I mean, traffic, no, I put the extreme of, meditating in traffic with noise and so on. You are the center of meditation, so you don't need anything. But in any case, Ra is saying that it's not the size that is relevant here, is the angle, the apex angle, which I suppose needs to be, if I can understand that the silo, the cone, and the dome are a little bit more narrow, I suppose, so the apex angle needs to be smaller, and all of these shapes are also efficacious. But that's what Don wanted to know. Not forming the king's chamber, or how can we build a pyramid that doesn't form the king's chamber, so it doesn't interfere with our work. Question 16, Don says, do these shapes that you just mentioned have any of the effect of the king's chamber at all, or do they have only the queen chamber effect? Ra says, these shapes have the queen's chamber effect. It is to be noted that a strongly crystallized entity is In effect, a portable king's chamber position, or simply a portable healer. That's a place, in other words. Remember, king's chamber is healing chamber. So an entity that is strongly crystallized, and we know by now that anybody who is crystallized, the energy simply crystallized. A mirror. See, a strongly crystallized person is a mirror of yourself. And what does a mirror tells you? I am you. So a healer is in essence telling you that, or reflecting reality back at you, as opposed to saying, you know, I am you, and you're saying, well, but I don't look like you. No, it's showing you your perception of reality. That's what a healer does. This is why a master or a guru will, depending on their methods of teaching, they will always tell you that that which you don't expect, because you're always trying to ascertain your reality. That's where you go to somebody and say, I have a problem. And the guru will always, they would know that you don't have a problem, that you are the problem, because you want to be the problem. And, you know, they will give you all sorts of views so you can see the illusory part of it. And that depends on the technique and the school and whatever. You know, their teachings, their ways of teaching. So I am much more in love with direct teaching rather than playful teaching. And does that make me a good teacher or not? I don't know. I've had success. Other people are not rather, some people are too sensitive for my way of showing reality. And I guess that's why I love the law of one, because it's a very complex topic that it goes direct to the, you know, it doesn't fool around by telling you that you are going to heaven, or that you, with your deeds, you accumulate, you know, certain things. And no, it goes straight to the heart of the question. So that's my preferred method of teaching and healing, I suppose. We'll explore teaching in a little bit. Question 17, though. Don says, then are you saying that there is absolutely no need, use, or good in having the King's Chamber effect at this time in our planetary evolution? Ra is going to say something interesting and say, if those who desire to be healers were of a crystallized nature, and were all supplicants, those wishing less distortion. Let me reread that, because even I didn't get it. If those who desire to be healers were of a crystallized nature, and were all supplicants, those wishing less distortion, the pyramid would be, as always, a carefully designed set of parameters to distribute light and its energy so as to aid in healing catalyst. I'm going to read the whole answer. Ra says, or continues, however, we found that your peoples are not distorted towards the desire for purity to a great enough extent to be given this powerful and potentially dangerous gift. We, therefore, would suggest it not to be used for healing in the traditional, shall we say, King's Chamber configuration, which we naively gave to your peoples, only to see its use grossly distorted in our teachings lost. Okay, so I'm gonna make a stop here. Not a pause, but a stop. Because, King's Chamber position is for healing. We know that. And is there any need for King's Chamber position for healing? Now, Ra obviously is not saying that there is no need for healing. It's just that there is no need, or not that there is no need, but first they say, if those who desire to be healers, those who wanted to be healers, and they were of a crystallized nature, right? At the same time, the supplicants were those wishing less distortion, then the pyramid would be a carefully designed set of parameters to distribute light and its energy so as to aid in healing catalyst, which is a very fancy way of saying, if those healers were pure and the seekers were also in pure desire, they don't say pure, but wishing less distortion, at least, I could speculate here that there is the possibility of wanting healing for the wrong reasons, or for, not the wrong reasons, but for abstract reasons. I think that's properly said. Because, I don't know, I may say, I want healing because I want to live for a long time, I'm afraid of death, and all of that. Well, I mean, healing is actually stop fearing death. So, do you want healing to perpetuate your fear of death? Or do you actually want healing? See? So maybe those wishing less distortion does not mean those wishing healing. And at the same time, those of crystallized nature must be healers, or healers must be of a crystallized nature, and not just anybody who can actually pretty much change somebody for their detriment in their ways of healing. I can go on a tangent here alone with the possibilities. I mean, I've heard all kinds of things being in this in this knowledge of healing and whatnot. You hear healers who would tell you, and I mean self-proclaimed healers that would tell you that no, all of that oneness is nonsense. Don't focus on that. Focus on whatever they tell you. Are they willingly charlatans? I don't know, but that is not a healer. A healer is not somebody who tells you not to seek oneness or to see the oneness in everything. Priests of a specific religion may also say that, you know, forget about you and God being one, just do this, do that. So, in any case, if that was the case, then the pyramid shape would be, of course, helpful, but that's not the case. And so Ra finishes saying that they found that people here were not of that desired of purity, so as to use this powerful and potentially dangerous. Their words are very careful. They don't say that the pyramid is dangerous. It's potentially dangerous. It's like giving a blade to somebody. You know, is it helpful? Yeah, you gave it with the intention of facilitating cooking, for example, or building. A blade can be used for that. But we know what a blade actually seems to evoke in us is harm, doing harm to others. So if we give a blade to somebody else, what would they use it for? And so they say, we therefore would suggest not be used. We therefore would suggest it not be used for healing in the traditional sense of the King's Chamber configuration, which we naively gave to your peoples only to see its use grossly distorted in our teachings laws. So following the blade example, that's what Ra gave. Ra said, hey, we use this blade for cutting and building and so on. Let's give it to them. Oh, look, they're killing each other. That's exactly what happened to a degree of the pyramid and initiation, healing, and all of that. This shows also shows the nature of sixth density beings, at least those of Ra. They're not very wise, and this is, or it's not that they're not very wise, but you can see we can call it in human words, mistake. They see it as opportunities, which again, I subscribe to that. However, you can see something here, and you can relate to this. Their desire to help is huge. Huge. They are the brothers and sisters of sorrow, right? That's what they call themselves in the Confederation. And their desire to provide this help is sometimes obscured by their love, you know, and they don't balance it well, I guess, with wisdom. Am I judging Ra? You be the judge of that. But no, I'm saying something that is it's well understood, actually, in our traditions, in Oriental traditions, you cannot help other people. You can provide certain things and then see what happens. But even our desire to go and help people is something that is, do we actually help people? It's a good question. You know, being there for them is one thing, and trying to help other people by giving them tools and giving them things, it's a double-edged sword, literally. So that's what happened. I mean, they realized their naivete by seeing what happened. You know, they thought the blade was going to be helpful, and it wasn't. But that just speaks of the nature. And you can see that they're not fully enlightened beings, let's say. Fully enlightened beings do not belong to this reality, because they are the creator in expression. And so, as long as they have karma, right? Those of Ra have karma. They have accrued a sort of karma with us. As long as that exists, they will feel bound to this reality. And that's their learning. You know, it's not like they're separate parts of the creator, but they're just that part of the creator that hasn't learned everything that needs to learn. And that's why they're still here. So, before I go into another tangent, Don says in question 18, what would be an appropriate apex angle for a TP shape for our uses? Ra says, this is at your discretion. The principle of circular, rounded, or peaked shapes is that the center acts as an invisible inductive coil. Thus, the energy patterns are spiraling and circular. Thus, the choice of the most pleasant configuration is yours. The effect is relatively fixed. So here I'm just going to make one mention. Again, this goes into shapes and all of that, which I, apart from the basic, which you can definitely get from this reading as well, I don't know much so as to elaborate on the different shapes and so on. But one thing that caught my attention was the invisible inductive coil that these shapes have to sort of concentrate this energy, right? And my very limited knowledge on electricity tells me that an inductive coil is just a different coil that benefits from one that has current. And who is in the inductive coil here? I don't know if it's the person or the prana that is moving. It seems like the prana or the energy that is moving is causing the same effect of induction in the entity. And I'm just going into a little speculation here with my ignorant understanding of electricity again, but energy seems to work that way as well with the mind-body-spirit complex, because we are prana. We are energy that is moving through our energy centers, and in meditation, this is trying to balance us out. It's trying to bring us back to balance, right? That's what meditation seems to have an effect on people. And that's the harmony that you feel, the peace and so on. That's just the balance here. The balanced self that is always potential in us. And so, is that how it works? Induction by the form of the TP, cone, silo, whatever, that is funneling and concentrating this purely balanced energy that is prana into the self as an induction to itself. I don't know, something for bigger minds than mine, so we'll leave it at that. And I shall continue to question 19, where Don says, is there any variation in the effect with respect to the material of construction, the thickness of the material? Is it simply the geometry of the shape, or is it related to some other factors? Ra says, the geometry, as you call it, or relationships of these shapes, is their configuration. In their configuration is the great consideration. It is well to avoid stannous material, or that of lead or other baser metals. Wood, plastic, glass, and other materials may all be considered to be appropriate. So, quick addition here. The geometry is the most important part of building something. geometry has balance energy. That's what geometry is. That's why it has been worshipped and adored by countless generations of different societies. Geometry is just beautiful. It has an inherent energy. And so naturally the geometry of the shape of what you build is going to be the factor to consider, and not so much the material and something else that Don said. Construction, thickness. The thickness, I don't know if they said here, I don't think so. The thickness of the material is important only to isolate the person inside, but has nothing to do with the funneling of energy. This is something that I believe Don asks in the future sessions. So it is simply the geometry of the shape, yes, and some other factors. The other factor that Ra says here is the material. So avoid stannous material. This is what we called also tin, I believe. Estaño is the same word in Spanish. Estaño, stannous, and now it comes. That's why in English we have these weird words that are synonymous with other ones that we have. You can't trace it, but believe me, most of these words come from Latin, and I know that estaño sounds just anything with an S, like stratum, for example. That's or stratus, stratum. That's coming from Latin. So, in any case, so yeah, that or lead or any other baser metals. I don't know what are all the baser metals, but if you're trying to build a pyramid, then don't do your research. Look up the metals. I'm supposing that certain ones are fine, but I don't know what the baser metals are. So wood, plastic, glass, and other materials may be considered to be appropriate. Wood, I know copper. They use copper for some reason. I don't know if it has a different effect, but copper is used. But you can even use plastic. So cheap pyramids. There's an idea for a business. Cheappyramids.com. Improve your meditation by doing something cheap. But we're going to do something more rich, which is question 20. And Don says, if a pyramid shape were placed below the entity, how would this be done? Would this be placed beneath the bed? I'm not quite sure of the arrangement for energizing the entity by placing it below. Could you tell me how to do that? Ra says, your assumption is correct. If the shape is of appropriate size, it may be placed directly beneath the cushion of the head or the pallet upon which the body complex rests. That would be the bed. The pallet. That's a nice word. We again caution that the third spiral of upward lining light, that which is emitted from the apex of this shape, is most deleterious to an entity in overdose and should not be used over long. So no more than 30 minutes, and put it under your pallet or your pillow. We can move on. Don says, what would be the height of one of these pyramids? What would be the height of one of these pyramids be? What would be the height? Oh, that's me reading wrong. What would the height of one of these pyramids be appropriately? Approximately. In centimeters for best functioning. Ra says, it matters not only the proportion of the height of the pyramid from base to apex to the perimeter of the base is at all important. Not sure what to say here because these are proportions, height, and so on, but that's what's important. Don says, what should that proportion be? Ra says this proportion should be the 1.16, which you may observe, and I'm not sure what that means, but I suppose the height or the base should be 1.16 of the height. That would be the proportion. So if the height is 100 meters or centimeters or millimeters, then the base should be, or one of the sides should be 1.16 No, in this case it would be 116. Yep. I'm guessing here, so I'm just going to go to question 23. Do you mean that the sum of the 4 base sides should be 1.16 of the height of the pyramid? Ra says this is correct, and just quite honestly, this is where I like the understanding. I don't know if is the sum of all 4 sides 1.16 of the height. That doesn't seem to make sense to me, but that's what Ra said is correct. Like I said, very poor in knowledge here, so maybe you can help me in the comments. But I do believe it's just one side of the pyramid should be 1.16 of the height of the pyramid. That's what makes sense to me. Otherwise, the sum of all of those would be too much. Somebody help me, please. I'm going to go to question 24. Where Don says, by saying that the Queen's Chamber was the initiatory place, could you tell me what you mean by that? Oh boy. Ra says, this question is a large one. We cannot describe initiation in its specific sense due to our distortion towards the belief understanding that the process which we offered so many of your years ago was not a balanced one. So we're going to get into initiation here. This is a really good question. Ra says, however, you are aware of the concept of initiation and realize that it demands the centering of the being upon the seeking of the Creator. We have hoped to balance this understanding by enunciating the law of one. That is, that all things are one Creator. Thus, seeking the Creator is done not just in meditation and the work of an adept, but in the experiential nexus of each moment. Good thing we had question 14, I think it was, whatever it was, where I explained, alright, and now I need to go look it up. Yes, question 14. Good thing in question 14 we explored this, because now it makes much more sense. First of all, Ra says we cannot describe initiation, because as we realize, initiation is the one that they offer was not a balanced one, and the one that they offer was a sort of mechanical approach to initiation. Let us put, it's almost, I keep using the analogy or the simile of psychedelics, because psychedelics offer also a sort of initiation. I mean, anything can offer initiation. Near-death experience, the loss of a job, or breakup, divorce, whatever. Any strong experience may potentially cause initiation, but obviously not everybody is initiated into it. And this is what they found here. They found that was not a balanced one. And so it makes me question a little bit Ra's wisdom or knowledge in general. Which, again, you know, it's not something to say, oh, they don't know anything. But it just only shows that as long as you are an entity moving, acting, behaving in certain ways, have certain directions, then you will be invested in reality. Which makes sense. It's not like we are in a race, we're in a prison, and we need to break out of this prison as soon as possible. All of this has a harmony, and this is one of the things that we learn in Sixth Density, the harmony of everything. And maybe Ra is not being here's a novel thought. Maybe Ra is not being enough considerate with themselves, because they need to see the harmony in them providing us the pyramids. They didn't mess anything up. They simply added something else to the plethora of things in the universe, which is humans with pyramids, humans with clubs and swords. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just more experience for the Creator, right? So maybe they're not being fair with themselves to say that it wasn't a balanced one, or, I mean, in their consideration, and I think that's what they say. See, I just love how they speak. We cannot describe initiation in its specific sense due to our distortion towards the belief understanding that the process which we offered so many of your years ago was not a balanced one. So they're not saying, well, our approach was not a balanced one. No, it is our distortion of belief or understanding. So our distortion of understanding that tells us that the pyramid was not a balanced one. Not a balanced way of initiation. But again, I could go on for a while here. What's important is when Ra says initiation, okay? You are aware of the concept of initiation and realize that it demands the centering of the being upon the seeking of the Creator. So we explored that in question 14. It's your focusing of seeking the Creator. Seeking the Creator, I mean, you are the Creator, so why would you seek it? Well, exactly, because you're seeking it from another self, from the apparent self, the illusory self, the ego self. And so the seeking comes initially from the ego self. That's why you get ego, spiritual ego, right? And so the seeking of the Creator needs to intensify. As you seek the Creator, you become the Creator. And so Ra says, we have hoped to balance this understanding by enunciating the law of one. That is, all things are one Creator. Well, you can't get simpler than that. I mean, if anybody says, I'm suffering, how can I get out of this? And you say, all is one. No distortion. I mean, all you're saying is all is one. And the skillful way, upaya, as we use it in Buddhism, skillful ways or skillful means are to enunciate the law of one without creating further distortions in people, but rather offering balance to them. And that, my friends, is the technique of life, or the teacher. So they say, thus, seeking the Creator is done not just in meditation and the work of an adept, or adept, but in the experiential nexus of each moment. Beautiful. This is huge. This one paragraph summarizes the whole thing. Seeking the Creator is done not just in meditation, or praying, or contemplation, or doing some healing work, or whatever. No, it is done in the experiential nexus of each moment. When you study Zen, or Buddhism in general, but Zen is more focused into the now. Be now. Snap out of your mind and come back to reality. Get out of your mind. Right? Get out of your mind and you will appreciate reality. So the Creator is experienced, is sought after in the experiential nexus of each moment. Anything is the Creator. The Creator is everything. So anything is the Creator. But we have more that Ralph shares here and says, let me make sure that I didn't double click. Okay, yes. The initiation of the Queen's Chamber has to do with the abandoning of self to such desire to know the Creator in full that the purified and streaming light is drawn in balanced fashion through all energy centers, meeting in indigo and opening the gate to intelligent infinity. Thus, the entity experiences true life, or, as your people call it, resurrection. So, the resurrection of Christ can be put into question here. He died and resurrected. Was that at the cross or when he was initiated? Where was Jesus initiated? Well, that's a topic for a lot of the discussion. But the fact remains that most mystics that understand Jesus, I mean, you can just read it from him. The things that he said were basically the law of one. So, he definitely died in the ego self-death. And this is what Ra is saying. I mean, read it up. When they say the initiation of the Queen's Chamber has to do with the abandoning of self. What is the self that you're abandoning? The Creator? No. This is the egoic self, the apparent self, the separate self. So you abandon it to such desire to know the Creator in full that the purified in-streaming light is drawn in balanced fashion. What is the in-streaming light? The prana, as you are meditating or as you are being initiated. So as opposed to draw the prana and distort it in the way we do, you are balancing this prana, right? The purified, the desire is so strong that the purified in-streaming light is drawn in balanced fashion through all energy centers, meeting in indigo and opening the gate to intelligent infinity. I can draw this easily. If I can draw a person and their energy centers all distorted. Initiation is wanting to seek the Creator in such a way that because you seek the Creator so fervently, you will start seeing the Creator everywhere. In this camera, in this mug, in whatever I have here, my phone, the floor, the carpet, the shades, everything. People, of course. I mean, that's the most beautiful Creator you can see. Other people in all their different colors and shades and so on. I just saw a 5555. That's an affirmation there. Not an affirmation, a validation. You see the Creator everywhere. And so what happens? As you see the Creator, you cannot help but be in balance. And so these energy centers start to balance, and the energy flows straight into indigo ray, making contact with intelligent infinity. This is done in initiation. Initiation, you seek that. And once you're initiated, there's no turning back. This is where you keep seeking the light, and you keep further balancing your energy centers. As you can always increase the amount of energy that you can channel through. Initiation doesn't mean that you begin and boom, you're Buddha already. You have a way to crystallize your energy centers. Crystallization is not a top that you get to. Oh, I just crystallize all my energy centers. What am I doing here? You know, crystallization is something that happens over time, and it can be even more beautiful as you crystallize even more. Imagine water crystallizing. You know, when they form those beautiful crystals and it keeps growing and growing. That's exactly what happens with our energy centers, to my understanding at least. And so this is where the entity experiences true life or resurrection, which is the death of the ego and resurrection to the new self, to the self as creator and no longer an ego. So much more I could say here, but we're going to go to question 25, where Don says, you also mentioned the pyramid was used for learning. Is this the same process, or is there a difference? Ra says, there is a difference. Don says, what is the difference? Ra says, the difference is the presence of other selves manifesting in space-time, and, after some study in time-space, for the purpose of teach learning. In the system created by us, schools were apart from the pyramid, the experiences being solitary. So I'm not sure if Ra is saying here the experience being solitary in the pyramid. I suppose it is. That's the difference with initiation, because that seems to be what Don asked. What is the difference between initiation, right? Pyramid, okay, so is it the same process of initiation and learning? And so Ra says, no, there is a difference in that there is the presence of other selves. So initiation is you by yourself. Solitary experience, seems to me. Where teaching, of course, is, you see, they say, and I think Don wanted to know more about this. I'm not sure if I can get an answer. But Ra says the difference is the presence of other selves manifesting in space-time, and after some study in time-space, for the purpose of teach learnings. I don't know what the end means there. See, there are certain things that, do I read it again? The difference is the presence of other selves manifesting in space-time and for the purpose of teach learning. So they manifest for the teaching. I'm taking away what they say in parentheses or dashes here. After some study in time-space. After some study in time-space. In any case, I don't know if there are beings materializing in these schools for teaching and then going back to time-space. Yeah, I'm not sure. And I think Don wanted to ask about this because it wasn't clear. Or if the other selves manifesting in space-time are simply more people, teachers, regular teachers. I would think there were other beings manifesting. Maybe. I don't know. But that's all I can really get out of this. So, Don says, I didn't quite understand what you meant by that. Could you tell me more of what you're talking about? Yeah, Don wanted to know more. Ross says, this is a wide subject. Please restate for specificity. So, yeah, what is it that you want to know? Don says, did you mean that teachers from your vibration or density were able... Okay, so he asks, were able to manifest in the Queen's Chamber to teach those initiates? Or did you mean something else? Ross says, in our system, experiences in the Queen's Chamber position were solitary. In Atlantis and in South America, teachers shared the pyramid experiences. This doesn't answer the question, though. Not to me, at least. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you were expecting an answer just like me, but Ross says that in our system, experiences in the Queen... He's going back to the Queen's Chamber. Or they are going back to the Queen's Chamber. Yes, so those positions were solitary, fine. In Atlantis and in South America, teachers shared the pyramid experiences. So, Don says, how did this learning process take place in learning or teaching take place in the pyramid? Ross says, how does teach learning and learn teaching ever take place? That's a clever answer. Yeah, we don't have a clear answer. That seems a little unclear to me. In any case, question 30. Don says, the dangerous pyramid shape for use today would be a four-sided pyramid that was large enough to create the King's Chamber effect. Is that statement correct? Ross says, this statement is correct with the additional understanding that the 76-degree apex angle is that characteristic of the powerful shape. Okay. So, question 31, Don says, then I'm assuming that we should not use a pyramid of 76-degree apex angle under any circumstances. Is this correct? Ross says, this is at your discretion. Don says, I will restate the question. I am assuming that it might be dangerous to use a 76-degree angle pyramid. And I will ask what angle less than 76 degree would be roughly the first angle that would not produce this dangerous effect. And Ross says, your assumption is correct. The lesser angle may be any angle less than 70 degree. So, again, a lot of discussion about building pyramids, apex angles, and all of that, which I'm not familiar with. So I can't help you there. But it needs to be a smaller angle, as it seems, to avoid the production or the formation of the King's Chamber. And yes, through the series of questions that I read, I don't have an answer for the teachings, as they said, the different possibilities of use of the pyramid. It seems like there was the initiation, the healing, and the teaching. They all seem to be obviously related to seeking the one creator. There are things that you can learn after you have been initiated and healed. Those things, I think teaching actually would be the progressive evolution of the entity. Teach learning, which is really what's happening here. As you learn, you want to teach. And as you teach, you want to learn more. this is how it has worked for me, at least. I mean, I'm making these videos in what may be considered a teaching way for people who resonate with it, and the amount of learning that I've gotten from it is huge. So that's how it happens. You don't learn without teaching, and you don't teach without learning, at least not in a synergistic way. In any case, I think there's more exploration to this session that I can do honor to, with the shape of the pyramids and so on, but that really escapes the most important topic, which I'll make at the conclusion. Before that, though, I want to say that the last question is huge. It's really important, and I will dedicate, a specific video to it. So part 3 for that, and it's just beautiful. So much to talk about there. So it's all about space-time, time-space, seeking of the one creator, and all of that. So we'll get to that when the time comes. Conclusions for this video is, for sure, initiation and the process which we go through. Question 14 and go back to question 14 and question 24, 10 questions apart, where you can see the process of initiation again. And I'll just summarize the fact that we are entities. What speaks out, what acts, and all of this is a movement of the creator. What you are is a movement of the creator. What you are is a drop in the ocean, but the ocean is a collection of drops. So a drop is the ocean, but a drop manifests as a drop to have a particular shape, direction, momentum, movement. Currents, you can say it's a collection of drops moving together. Typhoons, vortices, and whatever. The whirlpools, waves, and so on. These are movements of the ocean. In consciousness, we have movement. Consciousness is moving. And it looks, when consciousness moves, then you create the paradigm of space and time. Movement requires a space, a directional space in which you move, and time is really the measurement of those apparent changes. So space-time comes about. It's so funny. I came to this sort of organically, if you will, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about in the next question 33, space-time and time-space. But consciousness is moving. Now, consciousness doesn't have to move, and you can explore this within yourself as the inner light. Now, of course, the movement of consciousness is the upward spiraling light. What is the movement? What is consciousness moving towards? Unity. Unity is seen from the inner light. The inner light is permanent, is that aspect of the creator which is permanent. It doesn't change, is immutable, it's unchangeable, and it's immaculate, you may say. This is the quality of God that many of our religious texts talk about. And so, why am I saying all this? Because you can see the polarity, as Ra said in question 14, of the entity. You are a movement. In the Gospel of St. Thomas, it was said, how do I tell, if I'm asked about God, what do I tell them? And the short answer was, tell them that it's a movement and a rest. A movement and a rest. It's both. It's consciousness. Consciousness is moving as upward spiraling light in evolution, and is a rest, a constant, which is perception, is consciousness, is self-awareness, is the key. That's probably the best word we can describe with in English. Self-awareness is that permanent consciousness. Anything that you have been since a child up to now, you can say that has changed, but your self-awareness has never changed. You ever thought about that? Probably never. Your self-awareness never change. It's the same self-awareness. I mean, do it now, measure it. Ask yourself, am I aware? Oh yes, I am. Well, that is self-awareness. I know that I know. I am aware that I'm aware. Will that change later on tonight? Tomorrow? In a year? Next life? No, it won't. You will always be self-aware. And so that awareness is the key to realizing who you are, and from there enjoy this reality a lot more. That is initiation, and it's not getting lost in self-awareness, meditation, and so on, but in enjoying both and coming back. I'll leave you with the Zen saying, which most of you should be aware with, which says that as a young man, before I knew anything about Zen, mountains were mountains and waters were waters. Then, when I learned a little bit about Zen, mountains were no longer mountains and waters were no longer waters. But then, when I realized Zen, mountains were mountains and waters were waters. You come ignorant, you learn, and everything dissipates. Nothing is true anymore. But once you realize who you are and you come back to reality, everything seems the same. But now you're not ignorant. You know that you know. And with that, I leave you. I think that is the most important thing. I love this part. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. If you did, then which other way to show it to me? By tapping that like button. Not the light. Light. Yes, light. Generate some light by giving me a like. Subscribe if you haven't. Though I doubt it. Why would you be here if you haven't subscribed? Leave me a comment. Say, hey Gabe, I like your sweatshirt, or I didn't understand anything you said, or something else. Just leave me a comment there. I love to read your comments as long as I post, as soon as I post a video. Anyhow, that's all I got today. Thank you so much. In the description, you can find all sorts of links that I have there for studying the material, for the different social media where I share a couple of things. It's a lot of Spanish in there, but you can translate. Everything technology now, you can just hit a button right there and it says, see translation. You can see the translation. I share a lot of this stuff in Instagram. And that's it. That's all I got. Thank you again. I love you, my other self. I'll see you in the next video.